The college football landscape has changed a lot the last couple of years. There are new teams jumping up to the FBS seemingly every week, and there's a new rumor about conference realignment. One of the newest programs, though, in the Division I FBS is going to be the Delaware Blue Hens, who are moving up from the Coastal Athletic Association Conference into Conference USA, and they will become the 12th member. They'll be jumping from the FCS next season in 2025 all the way up, and they'll also join another team in Missouri State who will be doing the same thing. Despite that though, Delaware is actually one of the most historic teams in college football and have a really strong history in the FCS going back to 1980 and even further as a Division II school. In this video, I'm going to be going over a brief history of the Blue Hens program, how they'll fit into Conference USA, how they're doing so far this season, and what we can expect from the Hens moving forward. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about the Delaware football program. Let's take a brief overview of who the Hens are. Delaware started their program back in 1889, meaning they're around 135 years old, which is one of the oldest programs in college sports, and now the oldest in Conference USA, being older than the next oldest program, New Mexico State, by 4 years. Since then, the program has developed into becoming one of the more consistent programs on the East Coast, hovering around 60% win percentage all time. They have 6 national titles under their belt, 5 of which came in their time as a Division II school, and then 1 in 2003 as an FCS program. Their national titles came in 1946, 1963, 1971, 1972, and 1979, and as I said, 2003 as an FCS team. In 1940, the team really started to become its own under head coach Bill Murray, who did well enough in 10 years to leave for Duke's job. David Nelson was the next coach after him, who brought in a brand new offense. Delaware was the birthplace of the Delaware Wing T offense under Nelson, which is still run in high schools all over the country to this day. It's also one of the schools most famous for the usage of the wing design on their helmets, which was originally Princeton and Michigan. Tubby Raymond took over as head coach in 1966 and was their head man for 36 years, retiring in 2001 and entering the College Football Hall of Fame with over 300 wins and 3 Division II titles. They have a bowl record of 8-3 and a playoff record of 26-18 as an FCS school. Over the last few years, Delaware has been in kind of an unlucky spot in the FCS since they haven't really gotten close to winning another national title since their last one in 2003. They lost the national title game in 2007 and 2010 and haven't gotten past the semifinals since 2020. But they're still that solid FCS brand, and they're finally moving up to that FBS level they've been aiming for a long time. There's been a lot of great quarterbacks that have come from Delaware, which is probably what a lot of you guys know them for. Guys like Joe Flacco and Rich Gannon had really good NFL careers, and Pat Devlin, who you might remember for Hard Knocks, plus Scott Brunner have all been Delaware guys at the position, and they've helped the Blue Hens get to the point where they are now. They've also won over 60 big games over nearby FBS schools, making them a giant killer in that department, kind of like North Dakota State got that reputation. Their nickname for the Fighting Blue Hens is one of the more unique in college sports, which is named after the state bird of Delaware, but it's kind of funny that both men and women's teams at Delaware are called the Hens. The reason why Conference USA added them is pretty obvious. They've been looking at every option they've had in front of them for adding schools so that they can stay afloat as an FBS conference, and both Delaware and Missouri State were some of the top FCS options when it came to regional fit and athletic department revenue. Delaware as an athletic department has a budget of $48 million, which is on the higher end for even some group of 5 schools. Since they were that valuable and already had the money to compete, adding them as a travel partner for Liberty, which is in Virginia, made some sense. On Delaware's side of things, they've been building up an athletic department and their facilities for the last few years in order to make themselves more attractive to the FBS. But there hadn't really been a good opportunity until the move to Conference USA, and they got desperate enough to recently add them. The MAC wasn't interested in expanding their direction for the last few years, and without a real Northeastern conference at the FBS level, they were kind of left out until now. Them and Missouri State were desperate enough to join though, especially since the hurdles to join the FBS from the FCS are only going to get more difficult and more expensive. Delaware had the money to do it, so they are able to. So what can we expect from the Blue Hens in the near future? But first, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Bookie. Convicted as I am about a certain bet, be sure to place your bet with Bookie. This season, Bookie is pulling out all the stops with incredible promotions like a weekly risk-free boost on Thursdays where you can bet without a sweat. If your bet hits, you win big. If it doesn't, forget it. Bookie will refund your wager. But that's just the beginning. Bookie is giving away hundreds of thousands in prizes with their Super Survivor and Square contests. Get your entries now in for your shot at huge cash rewards. When you're ready to get started, be sure to use my promo code FISHER50 And make sure to get some extra cash on top of your first deposit. If you type in Fisher50, you'll get up to $1,000 in a welcome bonus bet, plus a $10 casino chip. MyBookie's tiered bonuses make it easy to deposit with crypto or with credit, and the bigger your deposit, the bigger your bonus. The bonus would be 100% match up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip. With MyBookie, you can bet on anything, anywhere, at any time, and make your season a winning season. Be sure to check out my link down below and use my promo code Fisher50. Well, athletically, there might be a little bit of a hurdle to climb to some of their other sports, but football's coming in at roughly the same place they've been for years. Men's basketball last made the tournament in 2022, losing in the first round to Villanova, and the program hasn't won a single NCAA tournament game in its history. The women's team is not much better, and the Hens have only made one appearance in the College World Series in 1970, where they lost to Texas in the first round in Omaha. They haven't made it back since then, and it's clear the move up from the FCS to the FBS was about football and football only. They're 17-9 over the last 2 seasons under head coach Ryan Carty, but going beyond that, their last 10 years under head coaches David Brock and Danny Rocco, they've only had 2 seasons under 500 and 4 appearances in the FCS playoffs. Even still though, that's worse than the dominant schools like Jacksonville State and Sam Houston State, as those other schools join Conference USA, so there might be a little bit of a jump that the Hens need to make. If they're able to recapture some of the talent they had under current Sam Houston head coach Casey Keeler, then they should hit the ground running in the FBS. The problem will be the school that's closest to them in conference play is Liberty, who's currently the best team in the conference. This year they're led by Ryan O'Connor at quarterback, who also started for the Hens last season and threw for 2,100 yards and 19 touchdowns. Running back Marcus Yarns returns as well, hoping to improve on his near 1,000-yard, 15-touchdown performance, where he averaged nearly 7 yards per game. They'll enter the final season of FCS play, ranked number 19 in the country, and last year they either blew out or were blown out themselves in 2023, which doesn't bode well for their future at the FBS level, but it will be interesting to see how they translate moving up the next level, because most of their talent is seniors this year. So far this season, Delaware is actually having a tremendous year. The Hens are currently 7-1, with their only loss coming against Richmond, and they have wins against schools like Monmouth, Penn, and Bryant. Statistically, Zach Marker leads the way with 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns without an interception. In the running back department, Yarns is off to a good season with 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, and Jonathan Silver's also broken out with 4 more scores. In the receiving department, Phil Lutz has 32 catches for 646 yards and 9 touchdowns, and on the defensive side of the ball, Gavin Mull ends up leading the way with 52 tackles. The Blue Hens are having a tremendous year, and there could be a lot of momentum going into the 2025 season, especially if they can finish with wins over Rhode Island, Campbell, and Villanova, before inevitably being put to the test in the FCS playoffs. Another thing we can probably expect is a lot of matchups between them and James Madison, since their rivalry is one of the few that became dormant once the Dukes moved to the FBS. Now that they're in the same subdivision again and are expected to play in 2027, this rivalry can now be played again. Despite being the only team in the state, Delaware is a fairly small college and is in a metro area that's already occupied by the Maryland Terrapins in Baltimore, D.C., and the Temple Owls and the other Pennsylvania schools in Philly. New Jersey is also right to their north, which has a lot of existing football fans already. It's kind of sandwiched between all these larger places, which on first glance makes it feel like it's great for growth, but these places already have existing football fan bases, and it doesn't really feel like Delaware is going to be able to take their football program to the next level based solely on metro area or market they're in. On top of that, Delaware as a state isn't very large. Their stadium, Tubby Raymond Field, seats about 23,000 people, and that's good enough to be the 4th largest city in Delaware behind Wilmington, Dover, and Newark, where the campus is located, when the Blue Hens are playing at home. In terms of states with other FBS schools, only Wyoming is smaller than Delaware. So I do think Delaware's cap is limited. I don't think they're going to be pushing for a spot in the ACC anytime soon. I do think there is a pretty high ceiling as a group of 5 school though, especially if they can keep up their athletics funding in this new conference and can succeed in the NIL era. Because other than Liberty, the Conference USA is pretty wide open right now, and I think they're in a better position to succeed immediately than Missouri State or even Kennesaw State, who joined this past season, and maybe their ceiling is even higher than Sam Houston State or Jacksonville State. Delaware's stadium has been updated a few times recently as well, and there are plans to update it more in the future to keep it on similar levels to other schools in the Conference USA or the rest of the Group of 5. It's hard to project how much a school will grow or improve over time, especially one like Delaware, who's been a solid small school for a while, but hasn't necessarily been a breakaway member of the FCS. Jumping up levels to the FBS does have an effect on a school's football program, either positive or negative, but there are far more cases like Coastal Carolina than there are like UMass, and I think Delaware will end up being more like Coastal. They're in a die-hard football state and are a flagship program, and there's a sneaky amount of fan support, and the growth of the next level and recruiting boost that comes with it might make them one of the more talented teams in the Conference USA, and who knows, maybe they'll hit it big. While they'll never be a Power 4 team, They're definitely one of the newer schools with the higher ceiling, and it's kind of cool to see them making the jump. What do you guys think? If you're a Delaware fan, what do you think the ceiling of this team is? What other FCS to FBS teams should I spotlight next? And also, what are your thoughts on conference expansion? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all of the videos on the end screen, including my video about the rise of Sam Houston State. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.